Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Today is nothing but Politics and Tony Hinchcliffe. If that's not your thing, if that doesn't float your boat and you want to check out and I'll see you tomorrow, no problem, I understand. For those of you who are sticking around, let's start with Jon Stewart, who maybe perhaps has added some sanity to this discussion.
Now, obviously, in retrospect, having a roast comedian come to a political rally a week before Election Day and roasting a key voting demographic, probably not the best decision by the campaign politically. But to be fair, the guy's really just doing what he does. I mean, here he is at the Tom Brady roast a few months ago.
The great Jeff Ross, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff is so Jewish, he only watches football for the coin toss. Gronk, you look like the Nazi that kept burning himself on the ovens. Kevin is so small that when his ancestors picked cotton, they called it deadlifting.
Yes, of course. Terrible. Boo, yes. There's something wrong with me. I find that guy very funny. So, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, bringing him to a rally and have him not do roast jokes, that'd be like bringing Beyonce to a rally and not have...
Joe Coy's got to be pretty happy. He's off the hook. Both fans of Taylor Swift and the Chiefs have formed a united front against Tony Hinchcliffe. One of the jokes Hinchcliffe said was, I don't know about you guys, but I think Travis Kelce might be the next O.J. Simpson. Not even sure what that means. It is not a good joke. He then continued, and I have played this clip. The other side's got a lot of crazy endorsements. Taylor Swift, Eminem, Leo DiCaprio, Beyonce. Every day, the Democratic Party looks more like a P. Diddy party. One social media user tweeted, "Oh, this MFer didn't only go full racist after he went after Travis Kelce, and I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift is going to effing sue his behind for the Diddy comments. Hashtag Chiefs Kingdom, hashtag MAGA cult." A lot of comedians are chiming in, and for the most part, it's not famous comedians. So I think many things can be true. I think the joke was awful. I think the environment amplified the joke being awful just as a joke in general. And I think perhaps, possibly, maybe there's some jealousy of Tony Hinchcliffe's success here. Samantha Ruddy tweeted, "Starting to think the guy whose primary source of income is showcasing every city's most desperate mentally ill comedians and then ripping them to shreds might be bad." Brendan Cooney tweeted, and stay with this one. "One time at the roast battle, Tony Hinchcliffe was a judge and he tried to make fun of this random open micer, but the open micer said, 'Yeah, but what happened to your Netflix special that really sucked?' And the crowd uproariously laughed in his face, and he came back with, 'I had a Netflix special and you're an open micer.' And the open micer said, 'Yeah, but it was really bad.' And the crowd laughed even harder, and my memory's not 100, but I'm pretty sure he started a Tony Sucks chant that pretty much everyone joined in on, and people were legit giving him high fives. That open micer's name was Tim Walz." Guy Branham tweeted, "To be fair, none of the comics had a great set at Nuremberg either." James Corden writer Sean O'Connor wrote, "There is something so incredible about seeing the worst comedian in the world bomb so hard he changes the course of U.S. history." Laurie Kilmartin wrote, "In my opinion, roast jokes work because you have to fight your inner no to laugh at them, and the people at Trump's rally probably call Puerto Rico a floating garbage heap every morning before they leave for work. It's not a joke to them, not even a roast joke." Ian Carmel, who was the head writer for James Corden, tweeted, "Big day on here for your favorite comedian's least favorite comedian." Chris Estrada tweeted, "More than ever, we need Will Smith to slap a comedian." Michael Ian Black, who I'll talk more about in a second, wrote, "I think America just found its next Jim Brewer." Robin Tran wrote, "Most of the comedians piling on Tony are making jokes about him. That's what we do when we don't like somebody. We make jokes about them." W. Kamau Bell said Tony Hinchcliffe's career with Trump barely lasted a tenth of a Scaramucci. Devin Costa, "Democrats are finally outraged at a bombing. The late night crew got involved." Seth Meyers, "Do you know how bad something has to be for the Trump campaign to distance themselves from it? Trump won't even distance himself from Hannibal Lecter. He's bragging about how similar he is to Scarface." Colbert said, "Buddy, you don't get to call something a floating pile of garbage when you're standing on top of Penn Station. They clean off the pee with fresher pee." Kimmel, "It was ugly, it was mean, it was hateful, it was racist, it was anti-Semitic, it was stupid. They really pissed off Puerto Ricans to the point that Bad Bunny had to get involved, and that's when you know you've got a problem." Has Tony blown his relationship with DraftKings? Hinchcliffe at one point had tweeted about the start of the NBA season with a promo code for new bettors. That post has now been deleted. Multiple other DraftKings promo posts have apparently been deleted. Hinchcliffe recently was on ESPN's Game Day and cracked some jokes. I shared those with you last week. DraftKings in a statement said, the commentary made by Tony Hinchcliffe does not reflect the views of DraftKings. I think that's in reference to the ESPN stuff and not the appearance at the Trump rally, but I'm not sure. The New York Post reported that Tony actually worked out the material at a comedy club the night before the appearance. Saturday night, Tony was reportedly at The Stand. NBC News, quote, happened to have a news producer in the audience, unquote. That's interesting. I guess news producers go to comedy clubs. No way they were tipped off, right? According to that report, the joke when told at the Strand did not get any laughs, only a handful of awkward chuckles. The Daily Beast reported Trump's campaign had prior knowledge of the jokes in Hinchcliffe's speech and even censored one joke for being too extreme. A campaign insider told The Bulwark Tony Hinchcliffe had a joke calling Harris a C word. Let's just say it was a red flag. 4 sources in the Trump campaign said that staffers asked speakers to submit draft speeches prior to the event. While reviewing Tony's set, the C word remark was spotted and the comedian was asked to remove it. Campaign insiders who spoke to the Bulwark claimed, however, they didn't notice the other controversial jokes, claiming those were ad-libbed. I've watched a lot of comedy in my time. The island joke, to me, does not at all appear to be ad-libbed. Maybe he didn't submit it for review, but it's not like he was doing crowd work and threw that out there. No way, in my opinion. The Daily Beast reports that the insiders were divided on whether or not Tony's immigration, unprotected sex double entendre about how Hispanics come inside the country was pre-approved. Daniel Alvarez, a Trump senior advisor, said the island joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. The Daily Beast suggests that it was Joe Rogan who put the idea of Hinchcliffe into Donald Trump's brain. On the August 14th episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan apparently said it would behoove him to hire a few great comics to just tour them and just write one-liners about all these different effing people if he could remember them. I like how he goes off in his own head, but if he could remember a few Hinchcliffe bangers, if he hires Hinchcliffe to take him on the road, you know how effing insane that would be? Hinchcliffe writing bangers for Trump to crap on people? Paraphrasing. Sticking with Rogan, he explained why Kamala Harris has not been on the podcast yet. Joe Rogan tweeted, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have had to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. I strongly feel the best way to do it is in the studio in Austin. My sincere wish is just to have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make that happen. J.D. Vance is scheduled to tape with Rogan today. Michael Ian Black has a Substack. He wrote about all this. Some of his Substack says the problem is when you try to take a roast format and bring it to a MAGA rally. One of the tenets of the roast format is that it's all in good fun. Hosts and guests make fun of each other. No holds barred, and everybody walks away shaking hands and maybe making out, probably not making out. What makes the roast work is that it's ironically a safe space. Nobody gets bent out of shape because everybody understands the format. Not so much at a MAGA rally, where harm is very much intended. Tony's racist jokes by themselves are whatever, kind of hacky, but who cares? In the context of one of Trump's hate-a-thons, though, they cease being jokes and start being just some more wallpaper with which to decorate the eagle's nest. Marc Maron posted a lengthy statement on his own website, more about the election, less about Hinchcliffe. Maron writes, the Democratic idea. Anxious, folks. We're all anxious, I assume. It's funny, I don't do a political show, but I am very political. Innately, I keep up. I read too many clickbait pieces. I waver between almost uncontrollable fear and not really hope, but just fantasizing for an outcome that will guarantee the process of culture and freedom of mind for everyone. Once tolerance is removed from the dialogue, democracy suffocates. Even though I don't do a political show, I've been very clear in my specials and on the podcast that I believe, and have believed for years, what's brewing in the country is an American fascist movement rooted half in grievance and half in Jesus, enabled by tech oligarchs and an inundation of propaganda from many sources. Skipping ahead, Maron turned to comedy and said, the anti-woke flank of the new fascism is being driven almost exclusively by comics, my peers. Whether or not they're self-serving or true believers in the new fascism is unimportant. They are of the movement. Whether they see themselves as acolytes or just comics doesn't matter. Whether they're driven by the idea that what they're fighting for is a free speech issue, or whether they're truly morally bankrupt racists, doesn't matter. They're part of the public face of a fascist political movement that seeks to destroy the democratic idea. When comedians with podcasts have shameless, self-proclaimed white supremacists and fascists on their side to joke around like they're just entertainers or even politicians, all it does is humanize and normalize fascism. It may be all self-serving. Greedy influencers and comics and public personalities and certainly tech companies want to align themselves with an unapologetic right-wing movement. There's no concerns for regulation or law or justice or decency or democracy to increase their earnings and put them in the seat of power. Marc continues and signs off, enjoy. Love, Maron. Vulture writes that Hinchcliffe would use this platform to tell jokes of this nature would have been unsurprising to anyone familiar with his work. He is, first and foremost, a roast comic who revels in shock. It's a sensibility he developed as a means to capture audience attention at the Comedy Store in L.A., where he honed his chops. Back in 2017, Hinchcliffe said, "My style is very much arranged around the darkness and extremely late spots and having to be compelling. I had no choice. Normally, by the time I go on stage, they've already seen 14 of the best comedians in town." Skipping ahead, Vulture writes, Trump has been courting young male podcast listeners aggressively in recent weeks, with appearances on Rogan, Andrew Schultz, Theo Vaughn. Most of these comedians are political agnostics. They're too interested in maintaining their image as nonpartisan freethinkers to explicitly support one presidential candidate over another at a rally, but Hinchcliffe has long been a public proponent of Trump. Yet Hinchcliffe's comedy style was never going to fly in this setting when broadcast to the public. A presidential rally is not a Kill Tony open mic. Skipping ahead, Vulture writes, Hinchcliffe's set in its entirety appeared to play fine in the room. At one point, Tony said, Republicans are the party with a good sense of humor. Free speech is under attack. Unquote. Vulture writes, then like clockwork, a bunch of Democrats got mad. The legitimacy of the grievance is, unfortunately, irrelevant if the Trump campaign booked Hinchcliffe to convey to his audience that a vote for them is a vote to protect the uninhibited comedy they'd see at a Kill Tony show. They might have just gotten that message across. The LA Times dove in. Laurie Kilmartin asked if George Carlin was alive right now and doing a podcast, would he have Trump on it? Would Trump want to appear on it? I think no to both. Interesting question. I would have to ask Kelly Carlin what she thinks George would do. I'm struggling to even imagine George having a podcast. If I had to pick, I don't know if Carlin would want to amplify the Trump message or if he would have him on and slam with words. Kilmartin said, as comedians, I think we're supposed to be the ones making politicians uncomfortable, not comfortable. I never liked it when presidents appeared on SNL, when the comics were impersonating them. They should be running away from you, not cozying up to you. And the ones that do push back, Trump's not going on. Andy Kindler said, if you look at Trump now, you know that Trump will forever be seen as one of the most evil people in the history of the world. As for podcasters having Trump on, they know there's money in saying something's wrong with being woke. People listen to Joe Rogan and they don't vaccinate themselves. People have died listening to the lies. I don't even know what you say about a company like Spotify. All they care about is the numbers of the people who listen to his show. Maron said, even if you're a comic, when does it cross the line? They're normalizing fascism when they have these guys on their show because the delivery system is a comedy podcast. Would you say, yes, you could be on my show and talk to my people and use my platform? Even if you think it's going to be a laugh, I'm going to talk to Trump about cocaine. Me and Trump could talk about wrestling. Even if you think it's good for your show, it's self-serving. It's going to get you a bunch of new followers and make you some money. You're still facilitating and helping a fascist. No matter what you're claiming to be, libertarians or apathetic or both-siders, we're just trying to get to the truth. They've made it very clear, Trump and his minions, what they want. It's not democracy. It's fundamentally un-American. There's a point where it's not funny anymore. This is not just another election. It's really not. All right, that was a lot there. Let's take the break. Be right back. In all this Hinchcliffe stuff, I forgot to mention, did I even share with you? I started watching Seth Meyers. I was watching him between the end of Red Zone and the beginning of Sunday Night Football. I got maybe 20 minutes in. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good, but I'm a suburban dad, so it was speaking to me. On Tuesday night, I was hoping to watch Pop-Up, but I may or may not have had too much work to do. This Hinchcliffe stuff's creating a lot of extra work. And there's been sports on 7 nights a week, World Series, the Jets are on Thursday Night Football, and, I love making fun of the Jets. So it might be Friday before I get to Papa. Jon Stewart, who we started with, he is going to extend his time in the hosting chair at The Daily Show. He'll be there at least through December 2025, still doing only Mondays. Stewart in a statement said, I've truly enjoyed being back working with the incredible team at The Daily Show and Comedy Central. I was really hoping they'd allow me to do every other Monday, but I'll just have to suck it up. Speaking of Seth Meyers, on a recent episode of the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast, Andy Samberg and Akiva Schaffer were talking about the Lonely Island. Samberg said, truth be told, during the writer's strike, we were sitting on our hands a bit, doing our proper nothing, and we were like, what could we do now? And we did kind of hop back at the studio and made some songs. Unclear how many, because we're not sure how many we deem releasable. Akiva Schaffer said, and there's still a bunch that are half songs, where it's like, if we could get some time to go back in the studio, we might be able to crack the rest of that one. Samberg said it's harder now because they don't have the outlet they once had on SNL to get songs written and recorded. They have to go out of their way to make time in their schedule, and you have to get them out there somehow. And that is your comedy news for today. That was a lot. See you tomorrow.